My fellow old rollers, welcome to the show. The man, the myth, the legend, my ugly twin, Brandon Mccaghren, first degree black belt under Eddie Bravo in the 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu system. He's academy owner of 10th Planet Decatur in Decatur, Alabama, a place that I've had the good fortune to drop in a few times and always had a great experience. Brandon, thanks, and really excited to have you on the show.
Thanks, man. Happy to talk to you.
This is super duper exciting. For my listeners, there were two events that occurred kind of concurrently that made me think that starting this podcast was something I should do. The first was I actually was a guest on Malachi Friedman, sorry, his podcast, the JREAM, Jiu-Jitsu Rules Everything Around Me podcast.
Okay.
And I had a really great time, and it was just a fun talk. He's a very interesting guy. He has such strange perspective on things. It was really fun just to get his ideas because he's so different from me. And then I had a chat with you, and we were just kind of talking about, how like jiu-jitsu is such a large thing and grappling is such a large thing that there's a million different niches, and you just got to find one that you might be able to fit. And you kind of said at the same time I was thinking it, like, podcast might be something that I can do because I just genuinely like chit-chatting with people. So you're one of the big inspirations for this to start. So thanks. I really appreciate that.
Well, my pleasure. I don't even know if I meant to, but thank you, Joe.
Yeah. Well, to give you the rundown on the intent of the podcast, I'm sure my listeners are probably tired of hearing it because I bring it up to every guest. The goal of this podcast is to talk to, listen to, and learn from experts who have a lot more experience than I do, who we can learn how to get as good as we can as fast as we can, but also to stay as good as we can for as long as we can. So there's a skill development aspect to this, and then a longevity aspect, and neither one of them is less important than the other. And from a lot of the people that we've interviewed, there seems to be within the desire to have skill acquisition and not be sort of what we would say maybe athletically dominating people, but to be technically dominating people. There's a longevity element to that, that particular methodology both makes you better faster and has a longer shelf life than does, athletic prowess.
So are you asking me to break down the difference in training styles, or just, I definitely acknowledge that there are big differences in the way that I want to train and get better as someone who doesn't have competitive interest, and the way that I wanted to train and get better when I did have competitive interest. So go ahead.
Well, I totally agree with you that there are definitely differences between the competitor and the non-competitor, but the differences aren't as obvious as we sort of think they are. And the reason I'll say that is from talking to Lachlan Giles. He mentioned a grappler that a lot of us are pretty familiar with, pretty high-level competitor by the name of Craig Jones. Some people have heard of him. And he said early on, all the way through purple belt, Craig was the lightest roll in the gym. It was to the point where Lachlan was even saying, you need to turn it up. And Craig was just kind of I just do what I do, I'm just learning. And then later on, after he developed a really, really strong technical base, so he had seemingly a years long, what we might call skill acquisition phase, all the way up through maybe late purple. And then he turned on his athleticism. So it's he saved that until his technique was to a point where he could then add the athleticism to it, and create a really dominant competitive performance. So I'm definitely not in any way saying that competition training and what we might call hobbyist training are the same, but I think you can periodize the skill acquisition versus like turning it up so that your body is ready for the competitive demand, so that you can train in phases and develop, but also, you know, be hardened and then ready for competition, you know, when the time comes.
Yeah, it's a hard balance, man, because in the beginning, like, you can't roll soft. So like if you're just starting out and you want to be competitive as a white and blue, and for a lot of people even a purple belt, like, you can't do it right and do it slowly.
Yeah.
You know, you don't learn how to do that until you start getting pretty advanced. Like, so all that free flowing, just kind of going where I want to go, which is really is the way I train and practice now. That's a path that's carved with thousands and thousands and thousands of reps. So in the same way that a river is free flowing, it goes wherever it wants to go. You can't control the water in the river, except for the fact that it's a defined and carved path. Thousands and thousands of years it took to carve that path. But within that very defined path, it goes wherever it wants to go. But it took the thousands of years of reps first to allow the water to flow freely like that. So it's I don't know, dude. I like jiu-jitsu a lot.
Well, I agree with you on that. And having trained with you, I know that your jiu-jitsu is a very fun jiu-jitsu. And to give you an idea, so I'm a purple belt. I've been training for 5 years. I was awarded my purple belt right before we had to basically, you know, shut down for this sort of COVID scenario. But from white to blue was a very defined track within our school. It's basically like when you can execute the 36 techniques of the original, like Helio Gracie curriculum, you know, on a live opponent, then you're a blue belt. And until then, you're not. It's very simple. From blue to purple, the way my coach explained it, it's more about the movements than the moves. He needs to see, you know, fluidity and transition and setups and starting to, you know, put fangs on the snake, so to speak. And one of the things that he told me was that I'm going to have to find different rolling styles, and I have to be able to execute rolls differently. Yeah. And so I started hunting out ways to do that, because that was definitely not natural to me. Just like you said, like, it's hard to roll soft in the beginning. I pretty much had one speed and one goal, which was I need to get to a clinch and slow things down, because I have a hard time scrambling. I've got Division I wrestlers. I've got, you know, freaking high school state champion wrestlers in my school. It's, you know, like if I try to scramble with them, it's not going to play out too well. So one of the places that I came that I felt the roles were so different from what I was used to was 10th Planet Decatur. And it was strange in that I actually felt like I could fall right in. Like, it wasn't hard for me to roll with you guys stylistically the same, you know, as close as I could, or approximation to what you do. It wasn't like I'm just going to do what I do here. You know, I very much felt like I could fall in line with you guys. And then I took that sense of, I don't want to use the word flow, but it's almost like, whatever your opponent wants, you let him have it, but you let him have it in a way that he don't want
it. Yeah. No,
you know?
That's definitely my style, man. I mean, I believe in that to the core. But yeah, I don't try to necessarily push that on the students, though, because that's a really, like, I don't know, that's like what I believe good jiu-jitsu is. But I also know there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. And so I want to give my students a lot of room to, like, express their personal voice. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, kind of like what you were saying. I do think the blue belt really is one where the student should be emulating, like, not even necessarily emulating the coach, but you should have, you know, like, if you want to learn to be a great singer, well, you don't start out by just singing like you sing. You learn to sing the way that Whitney Houston sings first, or you learn to sing the way, you know, you learn to emulate your favorite singers first.
Yeah.
And then you move on and you learn to emulate another singer. And eventually, all of those things become your influences, and your voice comes out of that, out of the things, of the experiences that you have, right? Out of the failures and the tries of learning to do this and this with your voice. So, yeah, I want that for my students as well. But I do think that the blue belt really is a time of, learn these specific things, learn to emulate this kind of style, whatever it is that you choose. You need to be looking at something and emulating it, I think. So,
Yeah.
agreed.
Well, and you know what's fascinating about what you're saying there in terms of, finding your own voice as a singer and whatnot. The other influence that I had in that time period that took me sort of from blue to purple in terms of rolling style was from a lesson that I had with Rollie Delgado.
Oh, he's
And
cool.
Rollie's advice to me was, whatever you did to get where you are ain't going to be the thing that you do to get to the next place. So if you seek a clinch-based, slow shit down game, the way that you're going to come to the next level is to go and open it up and scramble your heart, and you're going to tap, you're going to lose, you're going to eat a lot of shit because it ain't natural to you. But over time, your body will start to figure out how to scramble. And so I went from sort of what I would almost consider a mid-range game in terms of pace, from, starting as a blue belt, to now I have 3 ranges, which is that one mid-range that I was natural to. And then I have this very accepting pace that I picked up from you. And then I have the Rollie pace, which is aggressive, but more framey than clinchy, so that it opens up, space for scrambles. Yeah. And so those three almost conflicting mentalities are what took me, from blue to purple. And so I thanked you personally for your help in that. Like it was a big deal. And I talked to my coach about it. And he said that it's funny that was something that I latched onto, because he was like, I didn't expect that to be something that you would be interested in. He was like, you don't seem like the type who's just going to let people do stuff.
Well, you know what I like about that style, man? Like, it's a display of mastery and confidence.
I wish it was that for me.
Well, but once you have it under control and you win playing like that, it's a display of mastery. And so it gives people, how like when you're rolling with somebody who's just so, like, especially when you're new, they're just so much better than you. Like, like a new 3-week you versus like a really smooth, seasoned black belt. You're like, that's magical. Like that feeling right there.
There's a wizardry.
Yes. I love to give people that feeling.
What hurt me the most,
Go ahead.
My instructor one time was rolling with me and just clubbing me like a baby seal. I mean, it was terrible. Meanwhile, while he's doing this to me, he's coaching someone else in their role. Like his body is just he's not even paying attention to what I'm doing. Yeah. And he's just dominating me with so little effort that he can help somebody else across the mat to dominate their guy too.
I know, dude. I love doing that. We talk a lot of trash at my school too.
I like that. I actually, that was one thing I was going to bring up, because it was immediate from the minute I stepped on the mat that everyone was super kind and caring, and they, they definitely, their interest was in my training. Like, how can we help you get better?
Yeah.
But at the same time, they were going to talk mad shit.
It's fun. It's loose, It's just like, it's more like a sports team than it is like a traditional martial arts school, the way that we kind of run it. It's more like we all get together and play pickup ball a couple times a week. And then some of us are trying to go pro. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But it's just like a neighborhood of dudes who like to get together and play pickup ball. But we're all just trying to get real good at it.
That's I think that contributes. Like, this is another element that the interviews in the podcast have really, to use a 50 Cent word, elucidated for me, is that cultures completely influence outcomes. So if you have a culture where you incentivize really, kicking the crap out of, day one white belts, then you're probably going to have about 4 or 5 really good, tough killers and a whole lot of people that quit. Versus if you have a culture that is, hey, let's invite, the new people and coach them up, train them up, get them good so that then they can be a challenge to us as quickly as possible. Then you wind up with a whole mat full of killers and a whole bunch of people that don't quit because they know, hey, even on my bad day, people are trying to help me become good. These people care. And that's definitely the environment that I felt you had created. And I think consensus across a broad range of coaches is that environment has the best outcome even for its competitors. Like you look at it and you would say, well, maybe that's
I think it shows in the level of student that we produce. Just in our average blue belt in our gym is a pretty tough guy.
Yeah.
But I don't push them. I don't push them. I just come and give my absolute best every night.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to do that every night. Here's what I promise you. I'll be the best at my job that I can possibly be tonight. I will be the best. And if you're into that, come and pay attention. And if not, if you're just here because you need a break from your wife, okay, I get that too. Come and do it your way. But I'll be here giving my best, and you use it for what you need it for.
Yeah.
That's the environment I'm trying to produce. There's no bowing to me. There's no calling me sensei. There's no oos. There's no, you know what I mean? There's just, look, man, this is an environment where you can come and pursue excellence to your heart's content. And there's an environment it'll be an easy thing to do here, to pursue excellence. And if you can get a grasp on how to pursue excellence in this small thing here, then I can change your life.
Mm-hmm. I can definitely say that I had some accomplishments coming into jiu-jitsu, but jiu-jitsu gave me the ability to not be good at something and be okay with that. And that was never a thing that I had. If I tried something, I give it about 2 weeks, and if I didn't show some promise, I was going to move on. And with jiu-jitsu, it was really 2 years, like before there was any chance. I was terrible, just like abysmal, the worst. But for some reason, I taught myself how to be okay with that and just to continue to plug at it. And I think that has infused its way into the rest of my life. For instance, this podcast, I definitely, am about the white beltest podcaster that there's ever been. But I feel like I'm learning every single interview, and getting better at trying to find questions and really, really inspire my guests to actually open up, and then as far as like getting it out, I mean, it's not hard to get out because the people that I'm talking to are interesting people, like I don't think this is going to be a tough podcast to market because guess what? People like hearing what you have to say. I like hearing what you have to say.
That's weird.
I didn't say they like looking at you.
Oh yeah. Make this an audio only.
But it's when you said it can change your life. I'm not ready yet to say that jiu-jitsu has changed my life, but it has given me a willingness to purposefully suck at something, like to just continue despite not being good at it naturally.
Man, then it did change your life. Like what greater thing could it give you moving forward?
A bigger wiener, maybe.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think it does that.
If I can work that out.
If it does, and I missed that benefits package somewhere along the line.
Oh, son of a. Oh yeah, but the question comes to mind. So I've not met your professor Eddie Bravo, but just about everyone that I have talked to that has interacted with him has shared similar ideas of that sincerity. Like you said, I will be the best I can be on the mat today, and whatever you need to get from that today is that's you're right. I'm happy for you
That's
do
on
it.
you. Yeah.
I feel like observationally that is an element of 10th Planet culture, is that there's very much a lead from the front. It's everyone who has talked to El Capitan Bravo, says that he's just an extremely earnest and kind person. Like if you get past like the conspiracy theory stuff, you got to just to
Get
really.
past Rockstar conspiracy theory, Eddie. That's the
I'm
barrier.
I'm actually fine with Rockstar conspiracy theory, Eddie. But the sincerity and the genuineness and the kindness that comes, like the 10th Planet seems like a pretty warm organization all around, and I don't think that that's accidental. I think that comes from the top.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Eddie, he's the best dude. I can't imagine somebody being a more caring leader. Like he really like tries to stay in touch with everybody. He doesn't nickel and dime everybody for their association fees and stuff like that. You don't have to bring him out for. It's great. It really is great. And then the best thing about Eddie is he's just like super duper open minded, and he wants you. He's got a path for you. But if you've got a different calling in your heart to take your jiu-jitsu this way, just show some results. That's all he's asking for. Like, okay, yeah, you got some things. Just show me the results. Hey, Eddie, what do you think about this thing I've been doing? You getting taps with it in class? I got a couple. Get 20 and come back to me and show me. So, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Let me hear the results.
Yeah, I think that there may be some elements of that conspiracy theory, Eddie, even in that. And what I mean by that is the skepticism to say that the results are really the proof in the pudding. Like if something's fun or if it looks pretty, that's great. But will it work? And can I teach it to someone who has no frame of reference to it? Like those are the tough questions. That's like, the looking into it, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same kind of thinking in both spots, really. It really is. So that's definitely true.
Well, as you came up, because my understanding, from watching a couple of interviews with you previously, is that you had been doing traditional martial arts previous to jiu-jitsu for some weight loss benefit, and then went to a seminar with Eddie, and then it was just like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, pretty much. I didn't stop the other martial arts stuff, though. I just started studying jiu-jitsu also and trying to grapple. I just got, like, right away, I was like, okay, grappling's my favorite part. Mm-hmm. We were at a school that was really open. The coach there, Jamie Webster, really, really open to, like, wanting to learn a little bit about any style you could. So he always said that his objective was just he taught Tung Sudo, Mudok Kwan, some Japanese jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. But his objective was to introduce us to the part of the martial arts that we would study forever. Mm. So he just loved martial arts, man, and he knew a little bit about everything in the martial arts. So and he still practices and still teaches over there, and super duper cool guy, man. But I don't remember what I was saying. Oh yeah, but I kept training under him. I wanted to make sure I got a black belt from him too.
Yeah,
because I really, even though that wasn't the style that I liked the best, I love the way that Jamie approached martial arts, and that was important. That became important to me by studying under him. Really.
Yeah.
But yeah, jiu-jitsu grappling is the part that I like. Is the part of training that I like the best, and so that's the part that I want to do every night. So
well,
I kind of started shedding everything else, but I did a little bit of everything along the way.
What you were saying about your Tung Sudo instructor, and I'm sorry, I already forgot his name, but
Jamie Webster.
Jamie Webster reminds me of Stephen Kepfer's instructor in New York at New York Combat Sambo. And the reason I say that is he came from Russia. He had graduated Sambo 70. He was, I believe, he was an international master of sport in Sambo, and was teaching in New York. And there was no like Sambo is the best or my Sambo is the best or, whatever. It was, hey, Steven, if you want to go, train over there and learn some stuff, that's awesome. If you learn something cool, would you bring it back and show us?
Sure. That's exactly what Jamie used to say. Exactly.
So I think that there's an element, I don't want to use the word humility, but almost I would say maybe enthusiasm, just love of learning. That itself, there's a clear connection between that and skill acquisition, right? Like if you love learning, then you will learn.
And it's confidence too, man. It's confidence. Like, if you have yourself set up as this immortal kung fu master who only you have the correct teachings, then you don't allow your students to go train from other places because they might learn something from somebody else, which totally nullifies the holy kung fu master thing that you just had going, right? And so when somebody is a practicing martial art, when they practice every day, when they just want to get better and just want to train and understand it more, and so they're on the mats every day, then it doesn't matter if you go to somebody else's school and learn something. I'm not threatened by that because I'm not training here to get rich off of you. You can go train somewhere else. I'll take that as an opportunity to get better.
Right.
Like, okay, well, I lost a student there. There's an obvious hole in my training over here. So let's use that as an opportunity or a place to learn something, And Jamie was like that too. He was going to train every day. And so he had no fear of Brandon go train jiu-jitsu. It was cool. It was a great environment to come up in martial arts.
Another thing from Sambo Steve that this reminds me of too is he said that, here's a guy who's an international master of sport. Sambo obviously has a huge judo influence, and he would teach, like judo throws, like say, one day they were teaching Uchimata or whatever. And the lesson would not be, this is how you do an Uchimata. The lesson would be, this is how I do an Uchimata. Now let's see if we can figure out how you need to do it to make it work. Mm-hmm. And, for Steven, he was saying that way of thinking, translated to him that there wasn't a single answer. There was a range of answers. And as long as we abide by the concepts and make the damn thing work, then it doesn't matter that it's exactly the same way as me, or, because your body is slightly different than mine. Your leverages are slightly different. And also just your personality is somewhat different from mine.
Temperament.
Yeah.
Injury set. A lot of things determine how you're going to pull off a technique. So I really, once you understand the base mechanics of any technique, the off balancing, the balance, the leverage, the weight distribution, the timing, once you have a base understanding of those parts of a technique, the details can only be yours. You know what I mean? Like every black belt you've ever seen has got different magical details for his arm lock. Why is this? Could nobody figure out the right way to do an arm lock? No, dude. The right way is just to master those principles, given your body set, temperament, tiredness level. What's the best way for you to master these principles and execute a good arm lock?
Yeah.
So everybody's details are different.
I was following, you might say creeping, on your Facebook page one day, and we were talking about elements of, what makes one person's game, what are the elements of someone's game, what are the elements of your game, and we were talking about Kazushi, and off balancing and Kazushi is something that, having rolled with you, I know that you have just such a strong sense of. Like, at no point, even though I felt like I should be in base, did I ever feel like I had my own motion, was correct. If it was, I could do what I wanted. So what sort of turned you on to that? Because I feel like from rolling with you, once I was in that sort of Kazushi zone, which is like the Mccaghren, like, shit ain't working for me no more. Whatever happened after that could almost be goofy. It's like it didn't matter that much what you did, because I was so off balance, I probably couldn't stop it, or I'd have to move so extreme that even if I did stop it, I would basically hand you something else.
Yeah, that's the idea. Well, I just think that's the way you do good jiu-jitsu. So as you get good, you just get better and better at that, right? But the word Kazushi, I never heard that in my whole life until actually one of my black belts, Sean Applegate, he started saying the word Kazushi all the time. I was like, what are you talking about? He's he's like, Kazushi means off balance. Like, oh, okay. And Sean is a master of this as well. He's a master of this, and his style is entirely based on it. So Sean's really, really good at that. So he's probably the one that got me using the word, because it was a great way to describe the. I mean, it's in judo for a reason. They use that word in judo all the time for a reason. And we need that word over here in jiu-jitsu. We don't talk about it enough. So yeah, having a good understanding of that is crucial for a student. Or anybody that wants to get good, you have to understand that pretty deeply.
So one thing that I also really liked when I was down there is just like I said, the welcoming environment. And, we've talked about culture and welcomingness. But just from conversations with you, you were saying that in the past, and maybe not even the too distant past, there was some animosity. I won't use the word hate, but there were some challenges. Being, part of the 10th Planet flag, there would be people who would kind of look down on that or have a problem with that. And I was curious, like, I feel that perception has changed. I don't think, my observation is that most people see 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu as certainly, like legit and definitely an awesome, what we call like corner of the art, so to speak. But
yeah, I think it's super different than it used to be, for sure.
So what brought that on? What was, you were there in the earlier days of it. What was that feeling of, like, you were doing something wrong or out of bounds or something like that? Where did that come from?
People just don't like Eddie. There's no conspiracy to it. People just don't like Eddie.
Oh man!
But some of us love Eddie. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's all it was. They don't like him because he beat Hoyler, or they don't like him because he smokes weed. But now everybody in the country smokes weed, it seems like. So, but back then,
I'm the only one that don't.
Yeah, but back then, he was the only person in the jiu-jitsu community that was being honest about it, and so there's a ton of hate about that, right? Or he's outspoken, he's brash, he hates the gi. There's a list. He renames moves. He doesn't do those moves. He steals moves. Like, you can make up a whole list of things. But that's where the 10th Planet animosity came from. Eddie is a polarizing figure, and there were a lot of points in the community that people either loved or hated about him. A whole lot of different points, because he was such a public figure in the community.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, as time has gone on, Eddie's proven himself to be right about a lot of this stuff. And a lot of the things that I don't want to say created, but innovated, systematized, are part of the jiu-jitsu vernacular now, the common vernacular. Even if it doesn't look exactly the same, a lot of it came from Eddie Bravo.
Yeah, I definitely think. So, coming from a business background, there are, take for a musician, like, we know who Beethoven is, right? We know who Beethoven is because Beethoven marketed himself. It's entirely possible, and actually quite likely, that there may have been a composer better than Beethoven who just never put his music out, like, was satisfied with just creating it, and that was it, and that's all that person needed. But the willingness to put yourself out there, on the one hand, is very beneficial because it gives people the chance to look at what you're up to, maybe advance it, maybe, pick at it a little bit. There's an openness and an ability then to criticize.
Yeah.
But if you never put yourself out, there's never going to be any criticism. But there's also no chance that you can offer the type of, in someone like Eddie's case, the type of help that you're trying to offer. Like he was saying, I think I see a problem in what we're doing. So we can solve it potentially with this. Let's give it a try, and I think that could be a hard thing to say. I mean, the Gracie family is royal family, it's hard to say that they weren't exactly right about everything.
I mean, is anybody exactly right about everything? It's
and
pretty easy to say they weren't exactly right about everything.
I get that, but like societally, we and maybe that comes from traditional martial arts a little bit, but we want people to be right, like we want, and eventually, I think through the evolution of jiu-jitsu and also the evolution of MMA, we've come to the conclusion that there isn't a right answer. There's a range of answers that can be right if executed correctly. Like Israel Adesanya is freaking amazing. I don't see him as like the best jiu-jitsu fighter, but damn, the dude can fight, So can I say that what he does is wrong? It's like, and step into some sort of a cage with him and find out. Like you can be at the highest level and he's probably going to tool you up a little bit.
No, a lot of that.
Yeah. I mean, my point being that there's not a cookie cutter answer. There's a range of answers, and if we make our goal the search for those answers, we may come to some conclusions that are sort of, some might think are out of bounds or different from the, I wouldn't say orthodoxy, but even the accepted truth. And, then you start, I wouldn't say challenging the status quo, but at least making it where people have to, spend some time either A, hating on you, or B, reevaluating the premises by which they see, the world of their art. And that's a challenge.
Well, Eddie was super good in the beginning of just making himself seen, and then of course being part of Rogan's podcast, and I mean, see what that's become now.
Mm-hmm.
But that's been a huge part of it too, for sure.
Well, there ain't nothing wrong with having good friends.
That's right, boss. That's right. They've done good for themselves.
Yeah, that's and that's a good partnership. They've, their episodes together, they've done a lot of analysis and honestly, in their conversations have helped a whole lot of people's jiu-jitsu, helped them to analyze and make decisions for themselves.
Just to get started.
That too, absolutely.
That's the main thing. I would say, I don't know what number, but we get a bunch of leads for the school every single month. How did you hear about us? The Joe Rogan Experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like just heard 10th Planet, heard Joe talking about 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, or where does Joe Rogan train Jiu-Jitsu? Oh, cool. Is there one near me? What? There's one in my city? That's crazy. So, hey, dude, I hate to cut it short, but I got to get in here. My wife is going to punch me dead in my face. I'm going to miss the fights. She got them pulled up in there.
Well, we've covered basically everything that I wanted to cover. If somebody wants to reach out to you, how would they learn more about you?
Well, they can go to my YouTube, or they can go to my Instagram, or they can go to my Facebook, or any of that stuff. It's all brandonmc.ninja. So, and if you want to get a free course on kind of, if you're new, how to stop getting crushed when you're in bad positions, you can go to www.nogihelper.com, and there'll be a 4-video course there for you.
And I can recommend that course. I have viewed it and used it. So I'm a big fan of all your work, and
Thanks, man.
Anything that you put out, if somebody is interested, like be it, that or the triangle course or some of your half guard stuff with the lockdown and anything else that you put out. If that's something that somebody wants to study, you are such a good teacher and have an ability to break things down. And I really admire that. And I personally have gotten a lot better from watching and learning from you.
Oh, thanks, dude. That makes me feel good, man. Well, thanks for
Well,
letting me come on. Appreciate it.
dude, thanks so much for your time and your insight, and enjoy the fights tonight.
All right, dude.
Later.